And as you can see, the children are coming in. Thank you. Glad to see all these boys and girls. Maybe over here somewhere, not in the very front seat, but the next rows there. And children, and also with their guardians as needed. Not the very front row. Yeah, the next row. Children in your congregation. I'm very encouraged to see younger people, not younger than the children, but the young married age group in your congregation. I'm also very encouraged to see old people in your congregation as well. Sort of a balance here somewhere, and this is encouraging. There are some Adventist churches here in Indiana where there is not one young person, not one child in the congregation. And that's a tragic situation when it works out that way. So look after the kids and make sure with your Sabbath school that you have good Sabbath school instruction for them, because what they are learning and what they are doing in the church is very, very useful. Not working? It seems to me that it is, but anyway. It should. Thank you. And I think maybe I whoa. Sorry. Thank you. Have you all recovered? I remember in a church building, the building was small, the congregation was small one Sabbath morning, and there was a girl a little bit older than these children here that was seated on the aisle in between the seats and listening to the information that was being presented. And so partway through the sermon presentation, I stopped and I addressed her, and as she was arms folded and legs folded, I said, "Do you understand? Do you see this?" And she shook her head and she said, "Yes." So what the young people are getting, even though they are small, is habit forming in a positive direction. So again and again, I appreciate the fact that there are children here. I like to see young people, young marrieds, and a few of us oldies, Brother SL and a few others, our age group, that are still here with us as well. So we can all serve the Lord and honor Him in all of these matters. I might also add that something that is very, very obvious, and that is that we are living in a world of crisis and terrible tragedies and terrible events. And sometimes these things get us down, they discourage us and so forth. But in reality, we should realize that, no, we don't like these crimes. We don't like these events that are taking place in this country and in other countries. But at least it's foretold in the writings, in the Holy Scriptures, and in the spirit of prophecy. And so we realize that these things are an indication of what is happening in the world towards the end of all things. And I might add also that I'm encouraged here in this congregation in the outreach endeavors that are taking place. This is a good procedure, a good trend in this particular congregation. All right, then it is time for us to look at the parable of the great king. Now, you boys and girls, you can listen to this, and maybe when we come to the end of the service, when some of you boys and girls can tell me what part you remembered most in that which is being presented this way today. Chapter 1, back before the beginning, the parable of the great king. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there was a king. He was a great king, and he lived on his own planet. He lived in his own majestic palace in the royal city on the royal planet. It was a massive planet, so large that it was placed in the very center of the royal universe. And the entire universe, in its immense magnitude and glory, revolved around the royal planet. The royal city on the royal planet was itself resplendent with every imaginable color. Grand buildings that were a wonder to behold, so perfect in their structure and most remarkable in their design. Wide streets paved in resplendent shining gold reflected the glory of these majestic and colorful buildings. The royal palace, it was said, was not only the largest building on the royal planet, it was also the largest building in the entire universe, so large that it had its own controlled weather pattern inside the building, and it also had its own transportation system within that same building. The great king employed so many messengers, beautiful, agile, royal messengers, who themselves were remarkably talented beings. They were skillful musicians who could play the sweetest, most awesome music on a strange but very versatile musical instrument that blended so perfectly with songs from their own perfect voices. There were so many of these royal messengers, there must have been multi-millions of them, and yet they all knew how to perform so well their duties in the royal city, yet none seemed to get in the way of the others. Then there was a most majestic messenger, tall and resplendent in his perfectly formed beauty. He was highly talented and extremely capable. He seemed to occupy a very noble position of authority, yet he carried it so well, and with his most attractive personality, the lesser messengers were always very pleased to honor his every wish. It was said that this messenger had the unusual capability of singing a duet with himself in the most beautiful style. This majestic messenger in the royal city was always accorded a most honorable title as the supreme underlord, a position that he seemed to carry so well, a position that expressed a dignified responsibility not only in the royal city, but also right throughout the entire royal universe. Then there was the royal son, who also lived in the royal city. No one seemed to know where he came from, and yet it seemed that he was always there. The royal son was very similar in appearance and in character to his august royal father, the great king. And some were saying that the great king was grooming this, his royal son, to one day take over the administration of the entire royal universe. Now, the great king had a most illustrious capability. He just liked to design and to create another world from time to time, and then to place upon it a happy first inhabitant and a happy first woman. Then as time went by, the first inhabitant and the first woman would give birth to a little baby inhabitant, if you please. Oh, how these first inhabitants loved their new little baby inhabitant, and they all loved the great king so much for giving them life and for giving them such a nice planet upon which to live. There were so many of these beautiful, happy planets in all sorts of variety spread throughout the vast universe that nobody knew just how many there were. So many, in fact, that they could not count them all. Anyway, as time went by, this most illustrious messenger, the supreme underlord, began to get the big head. Do you understand that? Getting the big head? The supreme underlord understood that he himself had been created by the great king and by the royal son so many eons ago. And he also realized that the royal son was remarkably different. It seemed that he had never been created, but yet he had always existed. And in an affirmation of faith, scriptural reference regarding the creation of our planet, Job 38, verse 7. Printed version, electronic version. The morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. That's at the creation of planet Earth. The morning stars, in the Bible, a star is an angel. In our modern world, a star might be a movie star or a film star or a music star or a sports star, all with their lifestyle problems, most of them with their lifestyle problems and their sins, but they still looked upon as stars. And the sons of God, the atoms on other planets. So the morning stars sang together at the creation of our world, all of the angels that were involved. And all the sons of God, the atoms of the other planets, they shouted for joy at the creation of our world. The parable of the great king, chapter 2, the great expulsion. Well, there was trouble brewing in the royal city up there, so much so that two separate parties began to form. Those who were loyal to the great king and those who were loyal to the supreme underlord. Finally, things came to a major crisis in the royal city, and the great king called a huge staff meeting in the royal palace, and all of the royal messengers were required to attend. The entire troublesome matter was placed before them all. Those messengers who stood loyal to the great king could remain in the royal city, and those who stood loyal to the supreme underlord, they must leave. And they did. Almost half of all of the messengers were expelled. And at that stage, they had nowhere to go. In an endeavor to find a suitable planet for all of this myriad of now fallen messengers, the supreme underlord visited other planets throughout the widespread universe, seeking accommodations for the huge numbers of all of his loyal followers. On many of those occasions, the supreme underlord pretended that he himself was the great king. But no, there were just too many of these fallen messengers, so many that there was no planet elsewhere that could support their own population. As well as those fallen messengers, so many messengers so suddenly. The supreme underlord needed an empty planet for all of his own fallen messengers, and there was none. No, not one, anywhere. We interrupt for another Bible verse. Revelation chapter 12, 7 and 8. War in heaven, not only upon the planet Earth in our days, but up there in heaven 6,000 years ago. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. The parable of the great king, chapter 3, creation of a new planet. Now it so happened that around that time, the great king was in the introductory process of creating yet another new world upon which he would place a new first inhabitant together with a first new woman. This is so good, thought the rebel underlord to himself. Maybe I can get the first inhabitant and the first woman, and then all of my fallen followers. Why? We can all live on this new empty planet. It will be our home, and we can all live happily on it forever, he thought. The fallen supreme underlord watched very closely. He watched very closely as the great king and the royal son created yet another world. This one, if you please. This one in its own galaxy, but not right out on the edge of the universe. It took the great king and the royal son and also another divine being just 6 days to create the new planet. They did it so quickly. First, there was a great cloud of electricity, and then they turned this electricity into water, and from the water they made the whole planet and everything upon it. It looked so good, and it was completely empty. Aha, thought the supreme underlord, the great rebel. Such a good place for us and all of our fallen messengers to live upon, he thought. We must be sure to get this new planet. Then the great king made first man and then first woman. They were so tall and so very, very beautiful, and they looked just like the royal messengers on the royal planet. The two new inhabitants on the new planet were also very talented. As soon as they opened their eyes, they could speak. And it was the same language that the royal messengers spoke in the royal city on the royal planet. Affirmation of faith, scriptural statement, Genesis chapter 1, verse 31. God beheld everything that he had made, and lo, it was very good. That was our planet. I read it again. God saw everything that he had made, and lo, it was very good. The parable of the great king, chapter 4. The Norkosh gets the first family. And so that same great rebel, the supreme underlord, just waited and waited and waited and abided his time, awaiting the golden opportunity. Then one day it came. It just so happened that first man was on his own out in a field outside the beautiful garden. And first woman was on her own inside the beautiful garden. There was a very pretty animal that first man called Norkosh. It could fly. It could fly most gracefully. This is way back 6,000 years ago. It would pick fruit from a tree and eat it. It was such a delightful animal, one of the most remarkable you could ever see. And so the rebel supreme underlord urged the Norkosh to fly into the beautiful garden and to settle in the beautiful forbidden tree of death. The Norkosh was not supposed to go near the beautiful forbidden tree of death. And there are some things, boys and girls, that you are not supposed to go near, and that is live electricity. When you see a notice or you know something is there, don't go near live electricity. And so the supreme underlord urged the Norkosh to fly into this garden, beautiful garden, and to settle in the beautiful forbidden tree of death. The Norkosh was not supposed to go near the beautiful forbidden tree of death, but it went there anyway, and it picked one of the special looking fruit on the beautiful forbidden tree of death, and it began to eat. It had such a delightful flavor. Along came first woman, and she looked at the beautiful forbidden tree of death, and she saw the Norkosh that was settled on one of its branches. Then the rebel supreme underlord pretended to talk from the Norkosh, this snake. He told first woman what a pretty girl she was, and he urged the Norkosh to pick another one of the beautiful looking fruit from the beautiful forbidden tree of death and to toss it to first woman. First woman caught this nice fruit, and she ate it, and it tasted so good. Then after a short while, she began to feel a happy new feeling. Everything seemed to be even more better. Everything seemed to look more beautiful. She was entering a most wonderful new existence. Why? First woman thought to herself, eating this pretty fruit is so good. I must pick some more of this excellent pretty fruit from the beautiful forbidden tree of death and take it out to first man. I just know that he also will enjoy it, just like I have enjoyed it. And so in her newfound excitement, first woman herself picked several more pieces of this beautiful fruit from the beautiful forbidden tree of death. And she then went out of the beautiful garden through the gateway to find her husband, first man, out in the open field. And boys and girls, when you are doing something that is not right, don't try to get other boys and girls to do it with you. Get away from those things that you should not be doing, and stay away from these things in that way. When first man saw first woman approaching him, at first it brought a tinge of happiness to him. She was so very beautiful, she was so very graceful, and she was the delight of his heart. But then first man observed that first woman was carrying something. What was it that she was carrying in her hands? And then as she came closer, first man saw that first woman was carrying several pieces of fruit. Oh no, said first man to himself. Whatever is she carrying? It looks to me like it is the beautiful fruit from the beautiful forbidden tree of death. First woman, he exploded, what have you been doing? "Oh, nothing is wrong," she explained so sweetly. "I have just eaten several pieces of the delightful fruit from that tree in the beautiful garden. It tastes so good, and I feel so good after eating it. It makes me feel just like I'm standing so high." Sounds to me like a drug effect that we have in our world of today. Boys and girls, do not take street drugs. If you are to take drugs, they should be medicines that the doctor gives your mother and father to give to you. Don't take any other of these. And she said, "It makes me seem so high. Look at me. I am now better than ever," she declared. At this stage, the effects of the pretty fruit from the beautiful forbidden tree of death had not yet worn off, and first woman was still clothed with a beautiful light of glory. In desperation, first man realized that first woman must now be taken from him. "How can I have her taken from me?" he cogitated. "She's so beautiful. She is so graceful. She was made specially for me. She is my heart's highest desire. How can I live without her? If she is taken from me, I will be the only person alive on this whole new planet. I will be left all alone, all by myself, and I'll never see her again. I cannot lose her," he declared in abject desperation. Yes, first man took from the arms of his pretty young wife just one piece of the delightful fruit from the beautiful forbidden tree of death, and he gobbled it down. Back to the Bible, Galatians chapter 3, verse 6, Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. "When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, she took the fruit thereof, and she did eat it, and she gave also unto her husband." Look what happened. All three of them, the Norkosh, Adam, and Eve, all three of them ate this fruit from the pretty tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What happened to them? The beautiful flying serpent became a cursed snake. Adam and Eve became sinners. And look at your health and my health, our decrepit health conditions and situation in our days, modern days of this world's history. This is what we get from the original sin. But we go back, chapter 5, in the parable of the great king, a rescue for the human race. Now, when the great king up there in the royal palace in the royal city on the royal planet heard that something had gone wrong down there with new family on new planet, he called his royal son to come to him at the royal throne. The great king then said to his royal son, "You better get down there to new planet and see what has happened with new man and new woman. And when you find out what has happened to them down there, you must do whatever is necessary to fix it up." The Bible again, the Gospel of John, chapter 3, verse 16, this time in the International Standard Version. "For this is how much God loved the world. He gave his unique Son so that everyone who believes in him might not be lost but have eternal life." That word unique is a correct translation from the original Greek. "For this is how much God loved the world. He gave his unique Son so that everyone who believes in him might not be lost but have eternal life." And boys and girls, you at your young age know what it is to love Jesus, to love God, to honor your parents, honor the police, honor the church leadership, in all things that come their way in these matters. Desire of Ages 22. "From the beginning, God and Christ knew of the apostasy of Satan and of the fall of man through the deceptive power of the apostate. God did not ordain that sin should exist, but he foresaw its existence and he made provision to meet the terrible emergency." Chapter 6, the parable of the great king, this time the big boat. And so the years went by, and no, first man and first woman did not live happily ever after. In fact, on one occasion, as they were wandering along a pathway in a grove of trees, they found a fallen leaf, just one leaf, a simple fallen autumn leaf. This was the first time for fallen man and fallen woman. They had never seen an autumn leaf before, and they were so sad that even nature now was beginning to experience death. Fallen man and fallen woman, they both just wept, and they wept, and they wept. They cried with sadness, and they prayed also because they knew that they were responsible for so many bad things happening on fallen planet. And yes, they were responsible. They were responsible even for death in nature. And so the years went by. Fallen man and fallen woman had many children. And in fact, some said that they gave birth to 33 sons and 23 daughters. And their children grew up, and then they married, and then they had their own children. And so the number of fallen people upon fallen planet began to grow and grow and grow. When fallen woman got old, one day she went to sleep, and she did not breathe anymore. Neither did her heart beat anymore. And then later on, the same thing happened to fallen man. He got old, and one day he went to sleep, and he did not breathe anymore, and his heart did not beat anymore. Up to this time, almost nobody on fallen planet had gone through this experience before, and they did not know what to do with them. This was the famous first family. First man and first woman, first king and first queen. They were the first ancestors of everyone living upon fallen planet. And they should be honored so nicely, even if they were the ones who caused all of the troubles on fallen planet. In death, first man and first woman were indeed highly honored. And so the years went by. Things got so bad on fallen planet that the great king in the royal palace, in the royal city, on the royal planet above said, I am finished with all of these fallen people on the fallen planet. I will send them a great storm, and I'll start over again. But before he sent the great storm, he took the garden, the beautiful garden away. No one saw it go, but after it was gone, there was just an empty space there. The great king asked one special man and his friends to build a big boat. When the big boat was finished, lots of animals and birds went into the boat, and just one chosen family was invited inside. Just only 8 chosen people. Then the great storm came. In fact, such a great storm that it lasted without stopping for 6 long weeks. But the chosen family had to stay in the big boat for a whole year. Yes, for a whole year without getting out, not even once. When chosen family did get out of the big boat, everything was gone. And the whole landscape looked like a huge, muddy lake without even one big tree growing anywhere, not one. There were no animals out there, there were no birds out there, and there were no people out there either. They were all gone. All of the family members and all of the relatives and all of the friends of chosen family who had been in the boat were gone. Not one of them was left. No, not one anywhere. It was just an empty, forlorn, muddy world. And so chosen family left the big boat, and they were the only people anywhere. And so the years went by. Then more little ones were born, and they grew up, and then they were married, and they had more little ones, until once again there were lots of people everywhere on fallen planet, and lots of languages and lots of countries. Back to the Bible again, and this time the book of Isaiah with a parable, a song about the Lord's vineyard. I present a brief summary. Now I will sing, an Old Testament parable. Now I will sing for the one I love, a song about his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard set on a rich and fertile hill. He plowed the land, he cleared the stones, he planted with the best vines. In the midst of the vineyard, he built a watchtower, carved a winepress, and then he waited for a harvest of sweet grapes. But the grapes that grew in his vineyard were sour. Now you people of Jerusalem, Judea, judge between me and my vineyard. What more could I have done? Let me tell you what I will do with my vineyard. I'll tear it down, destroy it, break the walls, all sorts of things. The animals can trample upon it. The nation of Israel is the vineyard of the Lord. He expected a crop of justice. He expected to find righteousness, but instead he heard cries of violence. Another parable, this time, well, first of all, let me read the statement in the spirit of prophecy regarding the Jewish people. The children of Israel were to occupy all the territory which God appointed them. It was God's purpose that by the revelation of his character through Israel, men should be drawn unto him. To all the world, the gospel invitation was to go. Jeremiah says, you were a chosen people, a chosen grapevine, but you have become a wild, useless vine. Israel did not fulfill God's purpose. Now we look at the other parable mentioned twice in the Holy Scriptures, a summary found in the Gospel of Luke chapter 14. A king, Jesus, prepared a great feast, sent out many invitations. When it was ready, he invited the people to come in, but they all began to make excuses. One said, I've just bought a field and I must go and inspect it. Please excuse me. Whoever has bought a field or a house, a property, without already examining it closely. Another person said, I have just bought 5 pairs of oxen. I want to try them out. Please excuse me. Whoever in our modern era has bought a new car or a good used car without first going out for a test drive with the salesman. Another said, I just got married. I can't come. The delightful wedding ceremony is all over. The honeymoon is ended, and they still couldn't go. The servant returned and said, they're not coming. The master said, go out and get anybody you can find. A similar parable is found in the Gospel of Matthew 22, where Jesus told many parables. The kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding for his son. Well, same story. Those that were invited didn't come. Sent out invitations for more people. They didn't come. And finally, the wedding feast was held, and there was a man there who was not dressed in the wedding garments that were provided. The king asked him, what's wrong with it? Why are you dressed like this? And then the king said to his age, bind his hands and feet and throw him into the outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Yes, it's proper for us to be dressed appropriate in the house of the Lord. Many are called, few are chosen. Now we go to the parable of the great king, chapter 7, the coming of the Messiah. So the years went by. While first man and first woman were still asleep on the long, long sleep, the royal son was born in the chosen land, in a cave where the farm animals were kept overnight. The loyal messengers from the royal city on the royal planet, they came down and they sang a beautiful song so that everyone would know what had happened. Messiah has come. He's here. The royal son grew up and he preached to many people, and he performed many miracles like feeding the hungry, healing the sick, even waking up some people who were dead. He told them many parables about how to live and how to serve the great king. But a lot of people did not like him. So they killed him and they put him in a new grave. But he did not stay there for very long. He came out again alive. And before he went back to his home in the royal palace and the royal city on the royal planet, he told many people he would come back to the fallen planet and get them also. Affirmation of faith in the Bible, preparation for the second coming. Gospel of John, chapter 14, verses 2 and 3. In my Father's house, heaven above, I go to prepare a place for you. I will come again and receive you unto myself. That statement was made originally in the Garden of Eden 6,000 years ago. It is due to be fulfilled sometime rather soon. We come now to chapter 8, the final chapter of the parable of the great king. This time, the lost planet becomes the new planet. And so the years went by. Yes, the royal son did come back, and he woke up all of his people from their long sleep. Yes, and he woke up first man and first woman also. What a happy reunion. They had not seen each other for so long. And the royal son also collected all of his people who were not yet old enough to die. And he took them all up to the royal city on the royal planet. Now, boys and girls, sometimes old people do close their eyes and we don't see them anymore. But those who have loved and served God, they will come forth at the resurrection that Jesus calls and will be resurrected and taken up into heaven. There are some in this congregation that it is quite possible will still be alive when Jesus returns. That being the case, he will change them, a double change, and then he will take them, us also, into the things of eternity. He collected all of the people who were not yet ready enough to die, and he took them all up to the royal city on the royal planet. Everyone stayed up there for a long time. There were so many things to see, so many things to do, and so many things to learn, and so many people to meet, and they all looked so young and so pretty again. The great king took some of these people on a big journey, and wherever they wanted to go, they traveled so quickly. They saw happy people on other worlds. And yes, some of those happy people also had their own little happy children, without sin, boys and girls. They were so talented and so capable, and everyone looked so nice. Then after a while, the great king and the royal son brought everyone back down again from the royal planet back to the lost planet. And they also brought the royal city from the royal planet back with them as well. Everything on the lost planet looked like a big storm had gone by, and like a big earthquake had shaken everything down. Big houses were lying broken and damaged flat on the ground. Tall buildings in the big cities had just fallen over. Broken motor cars, broken trucks, broken school buses, broken trains were littered all over the place. And all of the animals were dead also. However, could all of the people from the lost planet who had gone up to the royal planet and come down again after a long while, however could they all live on the lost planet in this badly broken down condition? But then it happened. A big fire broke out on the broken down lost planet. And it was such a huge fire, it burned on and on and on. It was so huge, like you've never seen before. Why, the big fire just burned on. It seemed like for such a long time. It just seemed to burn up everything all over the lost planet. And when the fire went out and the ashes cooled down, the royal son looked at what had happened. And then he made everything on the lost planet look better again. And it looked even nicer now than it was when it was first made so long ago. The royal city from the royal planet was also here, and they brought back the same beautiful garden that first man and first woman had lived in so long ago. The great king was here, and the royal son also, and all of his loyal people that he had previously collected from the lost planet. They were all here, resurrected and translated. Everywhere around the lost planet, everything everywhere looked so nice and so clean and so modern and so beautiful, just like as if the beautiful garden had spread itself all around the world. There were lots of tall trees, pretty coloured flowers, lots of wild animals, but they were not wild like before. The animals did not fight each other now, neither did they kill each other and eat each other like before. One of the reasons why Adventists like to be vegetarian. They were now friendly to each other and friendly also to the chosen people. The lost planet made new became such a wonderful planet to live upon, and no one ever got sick again. No one was ever hurt again in an accident, and no one ever got old anymore. Everyone was just so happy to be there on the lost planet made new. The chosen people said that they just wanted to live on and on and on forever. Then the great king gave a new name to the now very beautiful lost planet made new. He called it the new planet. And after that, yes, they did. They all lived happily ever after. Affirmation of faith, Revelation 21, verse 1 and 2. I saw, said John, a new heaven and a new earth. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven. And before we sing our last hymn, which when we turn to the page in our hymn book, which will be number 75, The Wonder of It All, let me approach the boys and girls that are here and ask you, okay, what is something you remember from what I said? Can you tell me?
You should do what's right and not.
I said what?
You should do what's right.
Yeah, do it right. Okay, now a girl, what do you remember? Did you listen to it? Did you hear it all? Did you understand it? Yes, I'm glad you did. Thank you. Anybody else want to talk? Anybody back there? You would like to? What did you like about it? You just liked the big story, eh? Is that all right? And you? What do you remember? Well, I know what you do when you go home and you have the next meal there, supper there, then you can talk about it with Mummy and Daddy. Yeah, this big story. Okay.
To obey and trust.
The what?
To obey and trust, like in Adam and Eve. They're supposed to obey God's commands.
Yeah, I must obey God's commandments, yes. Okay. Thank you. All right, time, boys and girls, time, young people, time, older people, take the hymn book and we'll sing our final hymn. And remember, those who would like to and who are able to, because of activities and appointments and so forth, please come forward and we'll have a short prayer season in this way. Hymn number 75 is The Wonder of It All.